Good evening. Thursday, December 16th, 2021, here in Sarasota, Florida. It is 8:40 in the evening. A couple of housekeeping things before I get started with tonight's sharing. First and foremost, if this is your first video in this series called Giving Myself Voice, welcome. If it's your first video you've ever seen of me, welcome. In each video in this series, in the description below, there will be a link to the most previous recording. And in this case, a link to episode 3. And then there will be a link added tomorrow when episode 5 is done. This is an in the moment 28-day, 28 video exercise using an experience I had in an online course as the center energy that has served as the biggest impetus for what is coming through and the need to do this. In addition, I will be adding at least one link to a previous piece of work that is relevant to the given episode. I haven't done it yet, but I will be adding at least one link, possibly more, that is relevant, either directly referenced in an episode or that I feel is relevant to any one aspect of something discussed in an episode. And that will also be in the description box. And finally, I'm announcing that starting next week, I will be relaunching, or not relaunching, starting my podcast, actively starting my podcast again after 5 months since my last recording. My last recording was done the day before this class started, serving as another powerful piece of evidence for me to what degree I was derailed as part of this course, or as part of the experience of this course. Okay, today's title is Hijacking of the Feminine Energy. And before I get started, I wanted to sort of set the tone with a story from when I was a 6th grade geography teacher. I have a master's degree in secondary social science education. I taught 6th grade geography at Marshall Middle School in Plant City, Florida, from 2006 to 2008. I only lasted 2 years, and there will be much more shared about my experience as a teacher going forward. But in this case, I wanted to share one of my favorite aspects of each of those 2 years. And it was what and how I handled the introduction of my class and my classroom to my students. One of my favorite things to do was to decorate the classroom. And given my subject matter being geography, I had a huge range of what I could get away with that was directly relevant, because geography is far more than just a physical location on a map. But I also consciously knew that education existed well beyond the 4 walls of the classroom. And I did my best from day one with my students to try to instill in them that understanding, and also to instill in them what I could in terms of character development as a human being. I didn't see myself as a geography teacher. I didn't even really see myself as any sort of superior to them. I simply saw myself as a being that was a little bit older than them, with a little bit more wisdom, that was just tasked with trying to share whatever I could to give them tools to be successful and happy in their own life. So on the first day of school, what their bell work, that was like what they did when the bell rang and they sat down. The bell work, our first bell work exercise on day 1 for each of my classes. The kids were instructed to take a look. And I think we took like 10 minutes. Take a look at the room. Look at the walls. And there was a lot. Look at what I've got up, hanging in our classroom. Take your time and pick 3 things that are hanging in this classroom that most affect you, that most draw you in, that most affect you. And I want you to answer these 3 questions. 1, why do you think it's hanging in the classroom? 2, what do you think it means? What do you think it means? Why do you think it's in the geography classroom? Okay, what do you think it has to do with geography, or why did I hang it up? What do you think it means if it's not overt or clear? And 3, why did you choose it? What caused you to choose it and be drawn to it? By far, especially my second year, which was a distinctly different group of kids, and that's for another story, but my second year, by far, the most kids chose. It was like astounding. Almost all of them chose as one of their 3, this one particular poster. And it was this beautiful eye. It was a human eyeball. It was just a beautiful, picture. There was colors, but it was subtle because it was dark, with the colors highlighting it. And the phrase said, how do you live your life when no one else is looking? How do you live your life when no one else is looking? That story came to me because I think it is a perfect tone setter for what we're going to start to get into today. In these days, social media and likes and subscribers and views and all of this crap that boils down to external validation. I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm not trying to say there isn't a place for it. I'm just saying that this massive need to get external validation has really confused things, if only within our own psyches, about our value, about what something really is. Is it a magnitude? And about somebody, it's all about the numbers and the comments and the subscribers and not about the quality. It makes it very confusing when such things have become so valuable, and more when it's made, when you almost feel like you have to join in, especially if you have any sort of business or any sort of message you're trying to convey or share, or any sort of, God forbid, work that is calling you from the masses, from the mass energy. Just because there are many people out there who need and or want this external validation does not give any single one of them the right to impose that as some sort of automatic shared desire by all. I know tons of people who do not value social media, who are not on social media, who have no desire to be seen in that way. I know many people who do not desire oodles of money and or material things. I know many, many simple people with frugal lives, and the most enlightened people, the most what I would call spiritually evolved people in my life, tend to be older people that have extremely simple lives. Now, again, I'm not trying to suggest anything other than this also will come into play as I talk more about this experience, because that is not an easy energy to break through. To break through when you generally are approaching this world, let's just talk about business or spirituality in this case, or truth seeking, whatever. But if you're doing so or have done so much more silently, much more beyond this, behind the scenes, but perceive yourself to have a big role to play. It is not an easy journey to break through this false belief and this assumption that everybody wants to be seen. To Mr. Atwood, the ironic thing is, to use your own words, I see you. I see you. I saw you early on. I definitely see you after the experience in your course. I gave you time and time again, opportunity after opportunity to see me. I gave up on being seen as an equal, but it was pretty crazy that you couldn't even see me in common courtesy as a human being. All I was looking from you was to connect me to Mel K. That was it. I had given you dozens upon dozens upon dozens of hours of my attention. I had supported and bought products from people featured on your show. I paid $499 for a course I knew I didn't need and was not going to help me, in order to have a chance to just say, hey, I've been playing a quieter role for 9 years. Can you just connect me to Mel K so that I may have a chance to ask her directly if she would consider connecting me to Roseanne Barr regarding some ideas I had about combining to do something on behalf of the spiritual journey with Iron Man in Hawaii. That was all. That was all I needed from you. And I gave you so much, including being featured in your 3rd class for well over an hour. Me, my light, my energy. Am I being compensated in any way for helping to co-create at least that episode, that lesson in your course that you're now charging twice as much for? How am I being compensated for the profit that you're making? My energy was part of that, and I know how valuable my energy is. Now, what is my assessment and belief about why this happened? Well, we're going to start to get into that. But in short, as you will hear over the next couple of videos, experience after experience with me attempting to contact you will show that it was because I could be no use to you. As soon as my higher self got wind of what it picked up on, I didn't have it all figured out, but thank God my higher self picked up on what at least was what my experience was. And I know the energy well of powerful men seeing or noticing my light and my power and saying, ooh, you're really, what do you do? How can I use you? Because I've actually had more than one say it that directly. You didn't care because I wasn't of use to you, because I pulled back as soon as I started to feel as twisted as I got. And it would take a long time for me to sort it out. But this is clear as day. Now, do I think this happened consciously? I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I don't think it was conscious and trying to do anything that drastically ended up affecting me so adversely. But this leads us into the rest of this video. We'll be talking about the very real dangers of the egoic masculine energy. And keeping in mind that can get executed and lived and expressed through men and women. And allow my story to serve as a warning, just as a real warning. If you are an extremely powerful woman and you are currently in that class and or are considered, well, it wouldn't be and or, if you are in the class or if you're considering taking the class, all I'm saying is this has been my experience, that my energy was hijacked and blocked, albeit I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say it was unconscious. And here's the deal too. I'm not the only one that experienced this. I don't think relative to the number of people in the course that it was a huge number, but I know for certain I'm not the only one that experienced this. So it's just a warning. And allow me to proceed now with, this is a self-created, I guess you could call it I've got 8 different categories of